Fox. I'm in the Phocuswire studio at Phocuswright Europe, and I am with Ksenia Tarasova from Penta Hotels and Julian Leitner of Smart Host. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for hosting us.
I'm going to start with you, Ksenia. Am I right in thinking that Penta is going through quite a lot of technological evolution, shall we call it?
Absolutely. Evolution is the right word.
Okay.
We just scrapped it all and started from zero. So
that's what I heard at the Muse Unfold event.
Exactly. Yeah. Muse is our big partner. We started with the change of the PMS, change of the POS, CRM, plenty of like communication tools. So we are trying to achieve, this new advanced tech stack where we can actually, have the seamless communication, the seamless experience for the guest. I mean, everyone is going towards that, but it's really difficult to do, right? So what we are trying to do is take the top-notch technology and merge it all in one, in one flow. So.
And I mean, how long will it take, do you think, to get to where you want to be?
We're almost done, actually. Our transformation took us maybe a couple of months.
Yeah.
Impressive, right? A couple of months, like for so many hotels. But yeah, we're almost there. I think the last piece we're working on is actually the piece that I'm involved with mostly is the CRM, which is quite a long-term project, right? Because it's not only about implementing it, it's about collecting all the data, the data we already had, merge it with the current data and see how we can actually transform this into the new journey. And that's going to take a while. Also because we are changing the loyalty program. So everything at once. And the loyalty, we will see how the adoption goes, how people are reacting on that. It's quite innovative as well. So.
And I mean, what sort of challenges have you had in what stands out to you as challenge in the process of out with the old and in with the new?
Yeah, I think it's the data. Yeah. Right. I mean, we are all talking about data. It's, we had a really smooth transition with all our partners, impressively, because everyone always stumbled on something. But this time it was really like really smooth. But the data, of course, we still have some fragmented data from the past. We have the new data coming in and, we have to merge it in one. Unfortunately, some of the legacy platforms maybe were not collecting it as much, we were maybe not asking the right question in the past. Now we do. So we are trying to, merge it all in one. And that's the biggest challenge. We really want to, you see, we have this innovative idea that we want to step out of audiences. Everyone talk about segments, audiences. We kind of don't believe in that anymore. We believe in the fact that you are one person. You are not a segment. You are not an audience. You are your, interests, your spendings. They will never be same as Julian. So, we want to target people one by one. We don't want to merge them in the groups. And that requires a huge set of data, right? Yeah. It requires us to know more details about everyone, understand how we can target them with the dynamic content, one by one. So that is probably quite a challenge.
Okay, we'll come back to marketing to one in a minute when we talk about loyalty. Julian, you're all about the CRM. That's what Smart Host does. So what do you see? Give us kind of bigger picture on what the hotels that you're working with are saying and what they're able to now do with a newer CRM than perhaps they weren't able to do in the past.
I believe in the end, a CRM is all about making communication more relevant. What you try to do is you try to understand your guest and you try to use this knowledge to make communication relevant. And as Ksenia said, key is data. If you start with a completely empty system, you have to collect data over time. What we see, especially when hotels switch PMS, for example, they usually don't bring data with them. They start from scratch. And then the value a CRM can add to the guest journey will increase over time, but it will not be 0 to 100 at day one. And what we see is that CRM is becoming more of a topic than it has been in the past, because I believe hoteliers and hosts now understand the importance of making communication and experience relevant to their guests. And I believe that in the future, having a CRM will be just as normal as having a PMS today.
Yeah, just like switching your laptop on or whatever. Now, when you go out to hotels and you're talking about your system and what it can do you look at, how bad it is out there? Do you look at the hotel data and you go, ooh, or, is it the stuff of nightmares?
Well, it really depends on the organization, I would say.
Well, we're not going to name names.
No, we won't. I think due to legislation, usually you're in a better position to start with than you would expect, because legislation forced you to collect data already for quite a bit of time, right? So it is rare that you start completely from scratch with nothing. And what we unfortunately often see is that data hotels believe is very valuable because they collected it manually, in the end is worthless because it is inconsistent. I give you a concrete example, right? Let's assume you are a ski resort and you're interested in whether your guest is a skier or a snowboarder. So what was the old way of collecting this data? You simply told your reception, please mark guests as skiers or snowboarders. The problem is now you collect this data point, but the data point is internally inconsistent because I might see a skier in a person and my colleague might see a snowboarder in a person. So you have wrong data points. And this is a challenge that we see quite often.
That's interesting. It's interesting also what you said about the legislation. I want to ask about revenue per available guest, because a lot of the hotel industry and the tech players are talking about it now. And of course, what you said was that if you have the data, you can improve the guest experience. Fantastic. But it also has to be a win for the hotel group, right? They have to earn more money, but they have to do it in a non-intrusive way. So how far is a company like Penta buying into the RevPAG kind of discussion?
I think we kind of automatically into that because we have, the concept of our hotels, which is really, we have this iconic lounge, right? That is merged with the reception, with the bar. We've always focused on the general experience, on the general earning, so we never focused on the room revenue only because lounge has always been the number one thing, what actually makes Penta different. Exactly. So we, since the beginning, we had so many events in the lounge. We had so many, all our marketing strategy is actually also built around the lounge, around what can it give us, the networking within the lounge and so on. So, of course, the RevPAG, so the general, earning is actually something that we've always had. Kind of. I mean, so now it's a big trend, but we are, we're kind of naturally into that,
Okay. Do you think that's because you're a newer hotel group and you're bringing on board newer tech stack? Does that make it easier?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Because of course, every hotelier will tell you, I think that reporting is a big deal. We are always struggling with that. Everyone does because of actually what Julian just said about this fragmented data that, we might have the data, but it's probably fragmented. It's probably not even simply as in the right format, When he mentioned the skiers, maybe someone writes skier with an I and someone with a Y and, and which something can be correct, something not, but, that's what breaks the data. So, so reporting is kind of, an issue for us, for everyone, I guess. And this is where the focus is, right? So to get this data properly visible to actually.
And Julian, do you think that, when you're talking to customers that the industry is embracing this revenue per available guest concept, or are they still kind of bed, room and food and beverage? Are they thinking more towards additional revenue streams?
I believe they think more about additional revenues and, for example, what you can do in a CRM, right? You see, this is what the guest spends on average on lodging, and this is what the guest spends on average on extras. And if I have one room available, I can now choose whether I give it to a guest who's spending only on lodging or who's also spending on other services. And what we see is that hotels actually look at this and focus at this. And if I may add one point to the skier and the different writings there, what we currently experiment with is using comments that hotels make, for example, in their PMS about their guests, to make that accessible to our different AI systems that we use. Because ideally, you have a written text, a written comment, and AI can then do something with it. It can either use it to create segments. It can be used to give some recommendations when the guest is coming back the next time and so on. And one of the key challenges we find is when hotels start to use abbreviations that only them know. And when you have a reception and everyone in the reception, is using a combination of two letters and everyone knows there what it is. But once you make it accessible to a more generic large language model, this is a problem. Because
They don't know how to translate it. Yeah. Yeah. So you're quite far down your AI journey at Smart Host.
Actually, I would say we are doing a lot of research and testing with AI.
Isn't everyone?
Everyone is probably doing it or should be doing it.
Yeah.
The latest feature that we launched is basically for the reception or the concierge. We have a functionality that with the click of a button, you can get an AI summary about your guest.
Okay.
And this summary is looking at the entire reservation history, but also the entire communication history. So what mailings did the guest get? Has he answered to surveys? Did he give reviews and so on? And you condense that all in a little paragraph, 4 sentences about a particular guest. And when this guest is then standing at the front desk checking in, a good host will use this knowledge to make this experience more personal. And now it's very easy because I press summarize and that's it.
Yeah. So following up on that then, and I'm going to come to you as a hotel operator. So you have this, these snippets, as you say, and I think the company you use does something similar. And you can pick up something out of the snippet to sort of talk to the guest about, like say they've had an awful journey or something. So, so sorry to hear you were held up. How do you do it without being intrusive? So if you want to sort of make them feel good about themselves and you want to personalize, but how do you do it without being intrusive? Because it goes, I don't know, I heard your dog needed to go to the vet. It's like, well, how did you know that? Like, you're stalking me? Like, how do you manage that process?
Right. Well, there are a couple of aspects to this. Of course, soft skills, no one cancel that. That's very important, right? People, the training, the way people communicate, 100%. It's always been very important, still is. But also Penta works only with the zero-party data. So meaning that we would never collect anything that was not actually said or left to us by the guests.
Okay.
So
so it's implicit. They've given you the permission.
Exactly. We also, maybe because of the country specific, we are like operating the most. We are really careful with what we actually collect and what do we talk about. And here, the zero party is the number one thing. We actually just talk about what we were, told.
That's super interesting. So then go from there to, the idea you were talking about earlier, the marketing to one. Because obviously we'd all like to do personalization at scale. But what if the person only stays once or twice in a hotel? How are we going to personalize at scale?
Right. Well, there are many ways as well, that maybe people are not kind of thinking of straight away or where you can collect the data. So for example, we are working now with the AI assistant, the call center. Mm-hmm. Which is completely AI generated, and there is plenty of information that comes from there. For example, guest tells us, why he's traveling, where he's looking for, but the challenge there is to connect, right, this information. So apart from everything that we, ask the guest on the booking journey, which I think everyone does, but this call center thing, for example, I think it's quite a new thing to do. Also, to collect the information that they are telling us. And sometimes they ask, for example, do you have a swimming pool, or like I'm coming with a kid, can the kid go to the swimming pool? We might say that we don't have the swimming pool in this hotel, but we will know this information. Yeah. So this is something that we can say to suggest a swimming pool, right? Yeah. Maybe the AI won't be able to do that, or maybe the guest does not ask to suggest something else, but the hotel employee will. So
sort of low-hanging fruit in a way.
Exactly.
Yeah. So did you want to add something?
Yeah, what I wanted to add there, and I think this is where the power of LLMs really comes in. Because just imagine you want to send out a mailing to your guests, and what you do in the end is you approve the baseline communication and you give permission to the system internal AI to customize part of the content based on the profile of a guest. And 10 years ago, this was,
pie in the sky. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But now we are very close to doing that.
Yeah.
And we are very close to doing that because we have profiles, and it is actually not so difficult to do that. You just have to make sure that you keep it, as you mentioned, in the right level of comfort to the guest. You don't want to be too intrusive, but you also want to show, I know you, I value you, I appreciate you coming back. And this is why you get a more personalized communication.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wanted to ask you if you're seeing anything kind of innovative out there as you talk to customers, as anecdotally perhaps, are you seeing any hotels really beginning to, almost sweat their CRM system?
Well, I believe some users are using it more intensively than others, right? And we also have to be frank to ourselves. The general level of adoption of CRM and personalization technologies is still relatively low in hospitality.
So pen and paper.
Exactly. And even with little things, you can make a difference. And what we see is that those hosts who engage most with their guests tend to get the best reviews, the highest retention rates or comeback rates of their guests, and they're simply then also more visible in the industry. They are maybe participating more often in panels or being on a stage somewhere. So I think there is a general reward for you as host being guest-centric. And the reward is financially for your hotel, but it is also for your brand, both towards guests, but also towards the rest of the industry. So I think there are many rewards if you try to actually make it real.
Yeah. Okay. Now, I just want to touch on loyalty for a minute or two. So we've got the CRM. It's got all the data in the central place, and we're using that data to make to personalize and make nice offers. And then Gen Z comes along, and they want something completely different, and they're not going to be loyal for a night. They want a coffee, or I don't know what they want. I've got two at home, but I still don't know what they want. So how do you then create that balance, given all the tools that you've got and the modernization that you're going through? How do you create the balance?
Yeah, I think the key, at least for Penta, we step out of the concepts of points, of earning, redeeming, and things like that. We are really working towards instant benefit. So, and experience, of course. Yeah. So what we are trying to achieve now with the new loyalty, which is not yet in place, but it's a work in progress, is actually based on the behavior. So on the previous behavior, it doesn't matter if the guest already stayed or it's just where the guest is coming from or how he booked and so on. And we will be offering a gamification process.
Okay.
So they will certainly earn certain medal, badge, we can call it whatever we want. That could be displayed very nicely in a digital passport that then can be used, for an immediate benefit. So it can be things like free stay for maybe a different generation, for a different, type of customers that are actually interested in long-term benefits. But it can also be just access to a networking session right here, Also by understanding what is the type of stay that the guest is having, and we in Penta have plenty of corporate customers as well, we can understand, what we can give them as a benefit. So we can give them a session, we can give them a coffee, we can give them a drink in the evening, just to have a chill night and look at the football, for example. But this would be an in-stay benefit, so straight away, right? Yeah. While we also will be offering a free night stay, for those who are looking for a more long-term loyalty and long-term value. So I think the key is really to step out a bit of traditional schemes of silver, gold, and so on, to step out of the tiers, points, redemptions, and really go into kind of, offering them an experience and an immediate benefit whenever
what you're talking about is just looking at each guest individually, isn't it? That's
exactly
what
one by one.
It doesn't matter whether they've been a 20-year loyalty member. Is that generally, do you think, how things are going to go? And is it technologically difficult, or are the pieces coming together?
Well, I believe you really have to know your audience. Ksenia was telling me about her new loyalty program yesterday, and I think it's perfect for Penta, right? But maybe for other groups or chains, it is not suitable. I was sitting yesterday in a focus session with a colleague from Lufthansa, and he's telling me their miles and more will stay as it is, because Gen Z might not be or Miles & More might not be to the liking of Gen Z, but Gen Z is also not the target group of
and they might be getting 80% of their revenue from 20% of...
And he even said, wait until they are 45, then they will be our target
Then they'll
group.
switch, yeah.
Exactly.
That sounds like a very Lufthansa type.
Maybe, but I think there is some core,
some truth
to this thought. And I believe in the end, you have to have a loyalty program which fits your audience, which fits your guests.
Your tone, style.
And I think for a CRM, loyalty is close to the heart of what the CRM has to be doing. Or at least the CRM has to know about what you're doing with regards to loyalty. If you have some specific point programs or very individualized solutions, a CRM will most likely not be capable of doing this type of loyalty solution by itself, but there are specialized providers for loyalty solutions.
Yeah.
And the only important thing then is that you don't create another data silo, but you make sure that
All
this
plugged in.
exactly.
Yeah. Well, listen, Julian, Ksenia, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for hosting us.